All right. My fault. I stepped out for 2 minutes knowing that I had time certain at 3:30, and I was like, maybe I'll make it. Sometimes my time certain is iffy, but fortunately today was on time. So my VP of finance texted that you can fact me later for a second. My fault. But I will be pretty quick today. But okay. Elections have closed for associated students, so we officially have our new leadership all ready to go for next year, and they swear in on May 7th. So that's really exciting. Um, our new president is Corrine Holstrom. If you've worked with her before, she does a lot of work in safety, and she was one of our board of directors this year. So I'm really excited to see her presidency this year. And I will most likely bring her to my last Senate meeting just so that there's like a small like transition where you all get to meet her before she takes over. And yeah. Um, if you want to see the rest of the results, they're posted in our AS website for the rest of the positions. And I'm going to continue forward past elections. But is there any questions on that? And I'll answer it at the end. I was at CSU Advocacy Day with President De La Torre in Sacramento about 2 weeks ago, and we were advocating to stop the CSU cut because we were at $45 million at risk from state funding being cut. And so we were up in Sacramento basically highlighting all the positive aspects of what that money goes towards. And we didn't want to sound, what's the word? Like, there's a term for it, like, oh, tone deaf, because we were also advocating with schools like Sonoma State, and like obviously schools like that are in a much worse position than we are to lose that kind of money. So we wanted to make sure that we were realistic, but we also told our own story in our way that we would need that money for. And I overall think it went really well. We had really good conversations. And I only know that that's true because I walked out with like 3 job offers. So we did something good. And yeah, we're going to DC tomorrow. My VP of External Relations, Derek Herrera, is up there right now for the next 3 days for Advocacy Week. It's called CSU Hill Day. So me, Derek, President De La Torre, Gary Rodo, and oh, thank you. And a few others will be up with us in DC advocating for the federal issues. So we were in Sacramento advocating for the state related funding issues. And then federal is more of like the research funding, um, the DEI initiatives, and things that are impacted by federal legislation. So that's what we're doing this week. And um, my term is coming to an end. However, it hasn't plateaued yet, if you can't tell. Usually, by this time, the AS president gets to check out a little bit, but a lot of things came up this year. So I think I'm doing more than I did in the fall. But it's okay because I like it. And if I did this earlier, I would have been a lot less informed and a lot less educated on what I was talking about. So I'm glad that it's happening at this time of year, actually. And the main things we were focusing on, more like San Diego State, we as in me, sorry, the main things I'm focusing on before I leave are still to do with the Evolve Housing Project and recreation advocacy. So with the Evolve project, it's caused some controversy in some places, but we had Evolve present at our university council, which is all of our college council representatives who are elected by the student body. And the main issues that came up were parking and recreation. So for those that don't know, on the west side of campus is like Washiacock, Chapultepec, and all of the techs. So that housing project basically takes out all of the current techs and puts in bigger, larger buildings. However, it came to a really big controversy of parking mainly because of the recent announcement that parking lot 12 isn't going to have overnight parking, but there's also going to be no parking for the techs because they need to rebuild the techs with no parking. So that's double no parking for an entire side of campus that's underserved now. And the solution was to make parking lots 3 and 4 cheaper, but it's a safety issue and it's an accessibility issue, it's an equity issue. And so I've been advocating a lot for that to be changed. And I've also been advocating for recreation to be reconsidered because the only thing to do on that side of campus is go to the Arc. I lived there for 2 years. I lived in both the Techs and Washiacock and can definitely testify that all you can do is go to the Arc. There's no food over there. There's no um, real programming that's helpful. There's quiet lounges in the Arc, which is why it's so sought after. But because we're already having a lot of people that live in the res halls using that space, having that many more people on that side of campus is going to make it impossible to get in. And then it's just going to take away something that was once really, really useful and good for students. And in case anybody is curious, we did put together like a stat sheet, and anyone can ask me for this, but the main thing that we found out was from August 26th of last year to February 27th of this year, there were 494,000 visits and counting to the ARC by SDSU students. And of that, 327,000, so that's about 66%, were students living in the residence halls. So it's obvious that there's a need and the people that live there will be using it. And so the way that I've been going about it was by advocating to include like an ARC Express, kind of like how we have in the student union inside one of the residence halls. That way it helps mitigate some of the traffic that and the density that would be occurring on that side of campus. And it would directly serve the people that would live on that side of campus. Obviously, it's not a long-term solution, but there does need to be something that happens in the short term. And we just feel that that's a good medium for now. And then long term, maybe another building, and then we have like an entire floor is like another arc. But that's a 10-year story, and I won't be around for that. But that's what I'm advocating for in the meantime. And as far as parking goes, ever since that announcement went out to all students, we've gotten more than 10, I think somewhere between 10 to 14 Your Voice Matters submissions. And for those who don't know, Your Voice Matters is the initiative where any student, and I think faculty or staff can bring forth their opinions or concerns on campus. And that's how we connect a lot with the students. And we usually don't get that many at once, let alone all for one topic. So it's become something that's really prevalent on campus that students are really concerned about. So that was not short. I take back what I said. But that was my report. And if anyone has any questions.
Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time, President Hernandez, so I'm gonna ask anybody with questions to get back to you directly.
Okay.
We have our time certain here with President De La Torre. So thank you so much, President Hernandez.
Thank you.
So, we will turn, we need to get the mic over to President De La Torre, and welcome to our meeting.
Thank you so much, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. First of all, I want to take a moment to acknowledge this has been clearly a turbulent time. We, of course, have been addressing issues of federal funding, areas affecting our research faculty in significant ways, and also obviously issues addressing academic freedom, student rights. We go on and on. So I just want to say that I feel fortunate that at San Diego State, we have been really true to our mission and to our goals, and in fact, and that we continue to respect our diverse communities. More recently, I was at the ASU, in fact, just recent GCV conference, which is here in San Diego, and then tomorrow I'll be going to Washington to talk to some of our electeds about federal funding, particular areas such as Pell, which are really critical to our students, as well as to us. One of the things that's important is, it's becoming clearer and clearer that, on a general sense, the environment surrounding higher education is increasingly more hostile. I mean, that would be a gentle way to place it. And that, I think the academic mission is not well understood, not to mention the fact that there's expectations of, accelerated change, if you will. In conditions where we have to make decisions because of threats to funding. And so I think this is something that we are part of the national conversation in that, in the context of what we have done I think has served us well, meaning clearly when we look at our metrics for our students, our faculty and our staff have been deeply committed on ensuring that they complete their degrees and they can develop meaningful careers. I mean, I point to the fact that when you look at our 6-year graduation rate, it's at 80% and even higher for our transfer students when you took it 4 years. And when you look at our our 4-year graduation rates, we're closer to a UC. Not to mention the fact that we still are incredibly affordable in terms of tuition. I always tell people, where can you get? You can't even buy a used car. When you pay less than $9,000 a year for tuition and fees, that is a remarkable ROI. I say that at the same time that I'm saying that, I want to be direct and honest in the context of that we do have headwinds ahead of us. We have, I was a couple of weeks ago in Sacramento talking to electeds about the proposed budget cut. The budget cut is an 8% proposed budget cut. We're preparing for it, but it clearly would be devastating in terms of our ability to grow our faculty. We have a show going on with the idea that we are going to be incredibly selective, if not, single digits in hiring, the first time in my 7 years, but with the idea that we want to stabilize for the future, the fact that the budgets may not be as ideal. The other thing, though, that I want to say is what has been, I think, very, very important to us is that at San Diego State, we have been engaged in shared governance in a unique way. There have been disagreements. I don't want to suggest there have been disagreements at all levels, but I do think what's important is that we have civic participation and engagement. What I've seen across the colleges in different departments, a willingness to understand the importance of each of our students in providing them a pathway for their passions and their careers. Unequivocally, I can say I haven't seen disagreement in that area. There may be different paths to get there, but I think there is agreement. At the same time, one of the things that I would like all of us to understand during this time of stress, that I want us to give each other grace. And when I say grace, it means that the challenge for the faculty will be different at different stages. And what we need to understand is when our faculty come together with innovative programs that we need to have, and I'm going to use the words of a colleague, we need to have a sandbox that we all can play in, right? And what that means is we come from the mindset, and I, as an academic, I always refer to myself as an economist because I was trained as an economist and I see the world as an economist. But you know what? We have to see ourselves differently now. We have to see ourselves in interdisciplinary lenses, and we have to be able to be graceful enough to accept the opportunities of creativity so that new disciplines can be created, new interdisciplinary programs can be created, and that ownership isn't in a college, it isn't in a department, and it isn't in an individual. That's a hard thing to do because for someone like me who was schooled in a very traditional paradigm, it means that I may have to trust a sociologist. I say that more because economists are the ones that oftentimes are the ones that are hypercritical about sociologists. Now, what that means now is that as we look forward, and a lot of times when I'm speaking in the public arena, whether it's with electeds, whether it's with donors, or today I was in a conversation with Richard Federer, whose new book, Let's Colleges Fail, is based on Schumpeter's, he's an economist, his notion of creative destruction, which is the concept in economics that in order to have innovation in a capitalist society, you need to let something fail, right? And so I was listening and I was engaging in that, but what I was saying is we have innovative voices in communities at San Diego State. And when I talked about Mission Valley, about the public-private partnership, when I spoke about what we're doing in Chula Vista, what we're doing in Pure Land, what we're doing in in Mexico, what we're doing in Tbilisi. All of these things are the result of innovation, creativity of our faculty. They decided to take the risks. They decided to continue forward. They understood the challenges. They looked at funding very differently. And indeed, we have a very unique environment in which we've been able to move forward. So what I wanted to say today is that these are difficult times and we are here to support you. One of the things that I also want to mention is, obviously right now, one of the big concerns is what's happening with our students who come in with visas. And I have to say, you know, we've had one student and immediately we were able to connect with them, not only, you know your rights, but because we have, with the Jewish Family Services a contract, we're able to provide legal services to them directly. Now, I can tell you at UC Davis, I think there are 15 students already that have been identified. At UC San Diego, I was talking to the chancellor yesterday at the meeting, and there are several there as well. And there's no rhyme or reason. So if you want to say, is there a pattern? Because I asked that question. I've asked that of my colleagues. Is there a pattern? No, there isn't a pattern. That is part of the issue. And I sometimes think maybe it's AI determined. I have no idea. But we're very committed to the safety of our students. And that means providing them the opportunities and the support and the skill set. And what we may end up doing is, to the extent that we need to help our students who are coming from abroad, you know, we'll work with our faculty to ensure that they get their degrees or their credentials or whatever they need, because that is a San Diego State commitment to our students. And that is something that's important. You know, the other thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that, you know, we have achieved tremendous success. And when I say achieved tremendous success, these are concrete, not just kind of these feel-good, you know, moments. We're now at 122,000 applicants at San Diego State, the largest we've ever had. We have, as I said, graduation rates that are enviable. We have persistence rates of first year, 89%. You know, I could go on and on. We've become a Research One institution, albeit who knows how that's going to be defined in the future, given the federal funding that we're seeing and the shortfalls that we're seeing. But nonetheless, we've done this, and we've done it in a way in which I think it positions us well. You know, I wasn't really aware, but I have to give credit to our new director of career services, in that we've been able to raise $4.6 million in career services. 83% of our students, Joanna, you can correct me, are in internships. Well, these are data that I just learned, so I need correction if I'm wrong. In either internships or they have, you know, learning activities linked to careers or professions. And last year or this year, I think we had over 150,000 postings for jobs. And so we're moving in a way in which the argument of ROI, well, we're already on that pathway. We're already there. The question again is, how do we move forward in the context of creating the narrative so that we become, again, not an anomaly, but committed to our values, committed to our institution, committed to our students, and committed to being the exemplar that we know we all are. I want to just allow for some questions, because I'm sure a lot of folks have questions on the budget. Agnes can answer a lot of the details. I can answer. You know, as it stands right now, and I'm going to give you my crystal ball, Adela's crystal ball. Right now, the chair of the Higher Ed Committee, David Alvarez, is committed, I think, to limiting the budget cut. But one thing he did say that struck me when I had the conversation was, where do the faculty stand? And I did bring this to the head of the Academic Senate, meaning he doesn't hear the voices of the faculty lobbying why it is important. And if you think about constituencies that are coming, and when I was in Sacramento 2 weeks ago, and we were crowded, right now, every constituency is trying to protect their budgets. we have an obligation to do so as well, right? We can't just rely, as much as I love talking to those kids, you as faculty play a critical role as well as our students. And I want to give kudos to our students because our students were very actively engaged in that conversation. But we do need to have a full court press in order to make sure that we don't get this cut. Because it will result in a very different reality. It will result in a shared governance structure that isn't quite as lovely as we all would like to see. Largely because as the manager, as a CEO of an organization, I have to think of the well-being of everyone. That includes the custodians that clean the space. That includes the administrative assistants that you have. That means the postdocs. That means the graduate students. That means the faculty. And that means that some of the choices that you may want may not occur. So I just want to end in asking that, we are moving forward. I'm spending time talking to the deans, but I've told the deans as well, happy to talk to department faculty, talk to department chairs. But I do think what's important here is we need to have the transparency, but we also have the conversations. Because we're going to go into this together as a community, not as one individual, not as Adela as the president alone, not as the provost alone, not as the deans alone, because this is a transformational moment. And I do think, even though I'm not a big fan of Schumpeter, the idea of creative destruction is in the forefront of the minds of many of electeds. And creative destruction is something that actually, if you understand the economic principle, is one that I think is at the heart of what could happen here if we are not attuned to what we need to do. So I don't want to be doom and gloom. We've had, as I said, we have great metrics. We have a great story to tell, but we also need to think of the future. And the future is probably more important than the past. And that's an odd statement, but I'm going to say that because we can create a different destiny. But if we talk about the past as if that's where we want to be, that is going to be a very difficult conversation. And it's going to be a difficult conversation because the choices are very different today. So just keep that in mind, but I'm open to, again, any thoughts and any ideas you may have.
Okay, I see one hand raised, and I do want to speak on behalf of faculty going and talking to the legislators. I was there last week with the Intersegmental Council, with the UC, the community colleges, and the CSU. So we are doing our job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chair Sherman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Butler-Berg, and thank you, President De La Torre, for coming to speak with us today amidst a lot. Related to your comment about our students on visas and their safety and well-being, this morning I was notified that one of our SDSU students has been targeted and had their visa revoked. And so I'd like to actually cede the floor to our graduate student, Faith Chinapong, so we can hear from our students and how they're doing during this time.
Please go ahead, Faith, you're recognized.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Faith. I'm a graduate student here at SDSU, and I am sure many of you have seen that students across California are getting their visas revoked, including a student here at SDSU. And currently 32 plus students across California have had their visas revoked. And this is not a coincidence. This isn't a one-time thing. It is happening, and it is real, and it is affecting our students here at SDSU. I am here to ask that you all create a policy that demands the university to refuse compliance with government agencies that are targeting our students, and demand that SDSU be responsible for protecting us, standing with us, and create a policy that is anti-surveillance and pro-student. You all have the responsibility to protect us, so do that. And as President Adela was just talking about being here to support students, then that's what we need. We need y'all to support us, and we need y'all to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you. So President De La Torre, did you want to respond? or
No,
should I
You know,
respond?
I just wanted to listen to the comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
please. Okay, Secretary Fuller, you recognize?
Thank you, President De La Torre, for coming to speak to us today. I've had a request from a student who'd also like to share some thoughts about um, some issues facing students right now. His name is Ethan, so I want to cede the floor to Ethan.
Thank you. Ethan, you recognize? Oh. We got one.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ethan. I'm also a student here at SDSU. I'm an undergrad political science and public health student. I also work in the Pathways Service Tutor program. I'm a lead tutor at the high school level. I try to be very involved here on this campus. I'd also just briefly like to thank Fuller and my peer Faith there for coming out and supporting like this. Yeah, I mentioned my work at Pathways because I work in San Diego Unified School District, the K through 12, and they have a more hardline anti-ICE and anti-deportation policy than this giant university does, with giant endowments and collecting plenty of money in tuition. Nonetheless, we've already seen our students be seized by authorities. As Faith has mentioned, this is our duty and responsibility, anyone here in this room, to ensure that that does not happen to students. SDSU might be in violation of FERPA laws by cooperating with these authorities that do not have the right to these students' whereabouts, general information, their employment, anything like that. So going forward, like stated, we need transparent, hardline policy against ICE and other immigration authorities to not allow this cooperation that may or may not happen. I do not know that to be the case as of yet. In the case of the SDSU student that had their visa revoked, but also to not allow their physical presence on the campus. Just to read briefly here from San Diego Unified School District's policy, not assisting the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the enforcement of federal civil immigration law and not permitting access to district facilities or personnel except in instances in which the district is provided with a warrant, and welcoming all students and staff and their families regardless of characteristics including legal immigration status, gender identity or sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, religious affiliation, or other protected class. Crawford is a very diverse school. It's like a 2% white population and a 98% non-white population. Plenty of my students do not have any current legal status, and I would be heartbroken to see anything happen to them. I see them as my kids. And my peers here, I would feel a similar type of disappointment and rage. And I hope it is within your mind and haunts you every day until we have a serious hardline policy that prevents this from continuing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan, for sharing, and thanks for coming in person to speak truth to us. Thank you. There's two other folks lined up, but are you willing to?
Well,
speak?
no, I was going to ask Chris Manning.
Please
He
go
can
ahead.
speak to. Chris, are you there? Chris?
He was here. Oh, there he is.
Chris, can you respond to the support structures we have?
Yeah, to a certain extent I can. President De La Torre has already referred to the various structures that we have with regard to our relationships with Jewish Family Services for students who are caught up in untoward circumstances. As I recall from the presentations that we have done around campus starting in the fall, we are already in a position where we only cooperate with federal authorities if they have, and pardon me, I'm not a lawyer, but if I remember correctly, is if they have a judicial warrant. So we don't have any policies indicating that we are supportive of work with ICE, with the exception of the circumstance of having a judicial warrant. So relative to the institution to which you just referred, we are more or less in line with that institution as I understand it.
Ethan, you'd like to respond? Please, you need the mic.
I appreciate your clarification there. However, that does miss a large point of the comment I just made, being that this body and any governing body at San Diego State has, the duty to make sure that these authorities are not present on our campus. We have an open campus. That they could come onto our campus and do as they please. So I want to know what going forward will be done to prevent things like that. Okay, if you have to cooperate with a warrant, that's one thing, but we have an open campus that could allow these people entry to wherever they want to be. That's a large portion of what I just mentioned, so I don't want to be taking it out of context that, the university has already completed its obligation to its students. In my view, that is not the case.
Thank you.
And may I respond or
Yes,
do?
please go ahead.
Great. No, thank you. I appreciate that comment. So again, I want to reiterate the distinction between a judicial warrant and other warrants is fairly high. And in addition to that, as I understand it, I do think my colleagues, such as Jessica Renta, would be better placed to answer this question. But as I understand it, our current arrangement with law enforcement is that we would be notified if there were to be ICE on campus. At least that's what should happen. We also have a very distinct protocol for all of our MPPs when such events occur, such that we can make sure that we are operating within the bounds of the law, but not putting our students within negative circumstances. Again, I need to qualify my answer by articulating that I'm not a lawyer. I do not believe, and if any of my colleagues here on the call have the capacity to chime in, I do not believe that we have the capacity to physically prohibit individuals from walking on our campus, as it is an open campus. I don't think that's something that we have in our power to do. So we have to operate within the context of knowing that that can occur. But nevertheless, we have done a lot to set up both extra and internal structures to support our students and our staff and faculty should such an occurrence happen.
Okay, so we have two hands up and it's almost 4:10 and we still have some business we need to take care of, but this feels really important. Secretary, I'm gonna go with Chair Valjean first and then Secretary Fuller. Did you have anything?
I was going to address another point that President De La Torre brought up, and she brought up many good points. Thanks for that. I don't want to take away from the previous discussion in any way, but there was something else that struck me, where you basically say that we have to change way faster than we do now, and else, the policymakers are gonna move us. So that we are more of this time, and we know that universities are usually very slow changing. And so something that comes up in my mind, that a lot of what's happening here is also grounded in our tenure process and the guidelines and what faculty have to do to get tenured with the research and everything. You mentioned good examples, but I mean, you don't have to answer, but my feeling is almost that when you want to kind of go forward, break down, go more interdisciplinary or whatever, there should be a broad review next year of how we are basically rewarding faculty and what we tell them, this is important, and faculty look at what does it take to get promotion or tenure. So just a comment. I know that Amanda wants to speak as well.
Okay, thank you. I think I'd like to speak first though, because what I really hear you saying is that you don't feel safe in this world. You're really concerned about your colleagues and the students that you're working with. I just want you to know that we really hear you and feel the same way and are doing everything we can to protect everybody. Secretary Fuller, you're recognized.
I want to say that I just really appreciate the students coming here today. It can't be easy to sit here in a room full of professors and administrators and speak their truth. So I just want to really, from the heart, acknowledge how much I appreciate it. I'd also like to make a motion to extend the meeting 15 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second, Sherman.
Is anyone unwilling to extend the meeting by 15 minutes? Please raise your hand. Okay. It's unanimously approved. We'll extend the meeting. All right, so please, President De La Torre, is there anything else that you wanted to say? I'm not seeing any other hands raised right now, but she needs some mic.
I also wanted to extend my thanks to the students. I think, again, these are important times, and honesty and transparency is key. So thank you. But Arlette, I think you brought a very, very good point. I wanted to say that, you know, when I was talking about that example of the sandbox issue, is that I think that the facts are incredibly critical in this discourse, and the opportunity to create, if you will, new majors, new minors, having the flexibility to experiment, which again, within our construct, we have a very bureaucratic construct. At the approval process for any minor or major, it takes a long time. What I'd like us to think about is, can we give more freedom to our faculty to pilot different things without the assumption that it's going to be a zero sum, right? Which is generally what happens. I mean, as I said, I'm using the economists versus sociologists. You know, there's sociologists that do economic analyses and they use quantitative methods, right? In many instances, a proposal that takes that away from an econ department is a direct threat. That's my territory. What I'm asking everybody is that we allow for that. And to your point, Arlette, yes, I think this is a broader conversation, which is going to take longer for the faculty to look at, you know, and this is something where I think Joanna, you can play a great role in this too, is let's talk about, you know, what are the important criteria for tenure and promotion in an environment that is in flux, and what's going to require us perhaps to look at things differently. I recall when I was doing interdisciplinary work way back in a lot of my own research, I still remember reviewers would say, why did you segment by Hispanic women looking at this data? You don't need to segment by gender, right? The point is that we don't need to do that for ourselves, right? We're not protecting the canon any. That's all I'm saying. And I grew up in a generation of scholars where protecting the canon was the most important thing. Who's in, who's out, and who has the credentials to do things. And so that's really what I'm looking at in terms of, you know, as I talk to the chairs, particularly for departments that are struggling with enrollment. All right, let's be honest. Some of us have so many students that we, you know, we're in a density issue where we want, you know, some relief. But then some of us are actually struggling to have majors or to get general education courses that might be relevant. We need to provide that kind of openness and flexibility. And with it, it's going to create, I guess, it's domino, right? And the domino is, how do we handle that? And that's where the conversation is, I think, with the faculty and departments, as well as, again, working with the provost and the deans to find a way so that we're not penalized for being innovative, really. The critique from this author over here about higher ed is that we're not innovative. I would argue that we're very innovative here at San Diego State. And what we need to do is support that innovation and reward that innovation. And I will be here to champion that to the extent that we can, that it's in, you know, congruent. I know that there are people who, again, may have different opinion on this, but I do want to encourage that. That's what I was going to say. Well, thank you.
Thank you all for sharing. This is probably good. We have one more hand up. We'll need to have some. Are you a senator? Okay, so we need some senator to yield the floor. Thank you. We have a senator yielding the floor.
Hello. Hi, my name's Kelly. I'm also here with Ethan. I'm just curious, does SDSU have a policy right now what to do if ICE does come on campus? And like, are students aware of this policy?
Well,
And like
those are
faculty,
two
like has anything
questions.
been put out officially? Because I feel like that's
Yeah.
part of the confusion. Like it's been emailed out to students, like, because I work at a center, I'm part of an organization, like we've talked about this openly and none of us know about any of this.
Mm.
So that I feel like
Okay,
that's
that's a
part of the
problem.
concern is what do we do if we see them on campus? Like what can we do to not only protect ourselves, but protect the others around us?
Okay. Yeah, so there is a federal updates page. Our VP of Communications has posted that in the chat, and there's a link to it. So,
Yes,
yeah,
we've
there
included
has-
that in 3 of our all-campus emails and in our weekly emails to all of our PIs. We've included it from each of our center emails. We put it in the Senate chat again here. It's on our red folders that also all of our center directors have. But just to emphasize here, we do not collaborate, we do not cooperate with ICE officials on our campus unless we are legally implored to do so by a warrant. We have policies in place that are referenced in the link in the chat, but specifically we have an SDSU designated lead, Jessica Rento, our AVP for administration. Any employee who becomes aware, regardless of whether they were faculty, staff, student, should directly contact her if they become aware of any request to come onto campus by an immigration official. They should not engage. They should simply say, you can't come into this space until you talk to this campus contact and hand it over to her.
they don't know. Right.
That, you know, the school he's referring to has a written policy that he just read out loud, and I go here and I had to come here to learn this information. And I agree with stuff like that, but it's not something that's being put out. So I just thought it was just a question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's in our building and grounds policy. I'll add an additional link in the chat too, and we'll work on how we can increasingly
Get the
communicate
word
to
out.
students.
Mhm. Okay, I see VP Manning has had his hand raised for a while. I recognize him.
Point of clarification. Can we hear what the student just said? I think those of us on Zoom weren't able to hear the audio.
Oh, okay. Please go ahead and
Oh,
repeat.
I do apologize. No, I was clarifying that as a student here, it is not something that is very common knowledge that understanding we do have social media and like 8 different ways of communicating information. But here it's a common census. A lot of SDSU students do not know that the school has a policy against ICE on campus. A lot of us do not know that if ICE does come on campus, what we can or cannot do and stuff like that. So it's just basically informing us. Like I work at the Veterans Center. I'm a part of a student organization. Like I'm here with Ethan. Like we don't feel that the school stands up against this. We feel like the school's almost complicit. And that's concerning to us. Like we want to feel like we are learning in an environment that we are safe in, that, you know what I'm saying? Like this is college.
Hold the mic up a little
Sorry.
bit.
Like we want, like, this is college. Like we want to feel safe in our environment. We want to, you know, come here and feel
Right.
protected. I know we have campus police, but it's like, can we use them to protect us at this point? Are they part of the problem at some aspect? And again, it's just putting out the information a lot of like, again, I work at a center and I didn't know this. Like, it's just putting out the information so students are aware of it, that we are not complicit. We will not comply. Like SDSU is one of us. We will protect our students basically.
Thank you. No, I don't know what happened with VP Manning. Did you
I'm still here.
Okay,
I was just waiting.
okay, please go ahead.
I just wanted to articulate in addition to the various communications that Brittany had pointed to, we have also been very responsive to units on campus that wanted folks to come out and have conversations about our practices. we, for example, in SACD, we had all of the directors and their second in commands really early on in a presentation on that. I've gone to several presentations with the URC, and I know that Anna Molina from the president's office and Cynthia Torres and Emilio and others have been really making the rounds, going to anyone who has asked to have more knowledge. So I apologize if we have not reached everyone as much as we should have, but I do want to just sort of pledge and promise to you, any community from a faculty department to a student group to a center, et cetera, that would like to have folks come out and have a one-on-one conversation about the practices that we are engaging in for support, we would prioritize it and be more than happy to come out and speak to that group.
Thank you. All right, I'm seeing, did you have your hand raised up, Ethan, or is it covered? Okay.
I just wanted to mention earlier, I took a lot of issue with hearing that there doesn't appear to be pattern with students that are having their legal documents revoked and being detained by immigration authorities, as was the case with Mahmoud Khalil and the two other very high-profile cases of students being detained, having their documents revoked, and they're now currently in ICE custody in Louisiana, I believe. I would not be surprised to find out that this is the case coming up with students at UCSD, because we don't have that information at this time, and possibly the case with our student here at SDSU. But again, that information is not public yet, just the fact that they were seized. Again, if that's the case, student activity, you know, in any sort of surveillance that may go through the apparatus of the university can't be, you know, weaponized by these authorities to steal students away. I mean, a lot of these people getting snatched up are like PhD students, grad students. They're like the most valuable, you know, people here at these campuses. So I don't know. It's just worth mentioning and not skipping over. Be not factual.
Thank you. I think we do have some information about our student, though, that, did you want to share that, Brittany?
What we can share about our student is, no, that doesn't necessarily be any connection to that pattern that we've, heard about. For the student connected to SDSU, the student connected to SDSU also will be able to graduate unimpacted. With the legal counsel that we've been able to secure working with that student, their time to degree and all of the rest will continue unimpacted because we were able to work with them quickly. And no, we do not have any reasoning either connected to what you're talking about or anything else that we can discern at this time. Most of the other universities we're talking to are feeling in a similar boat, though. They do not have reasons that the students have been given, the university has been given, that show up as status, it just shows up as terminated. So that's why we're working directly with the student. But we check a few times a day. We've had no other students impacted at this time.
I guess what strikes me though about this is that we don't know what's coming next. And I sure do hear and feel the anxiety about all of this. And that I'm glad that you're speaking out and that you came here today and that we're dealing with this, because I think the other thing that contributes to the anxiety is not talking about what's happening sometimes, so that folks know what's happening. So thank you. Sadly, we do have some other business that we need to transition to. Thank you, President De La Torre, for coming in. I would like to go back to the undergraduate curriculum committee.
Thank you very much, and no problem at all, and I will try to be very concise since it is late. Quick update on our enrollment, which is very healthy. First, starting off with summer session. Registration began last month. We now have about 8,500 students who are already enrolled in summer session courses, which is about 10% ahead of where we were at this time last year, recognizing we still have a ways to go. So some of that could simply be earlier registrations, but I suspect much of this is actually real. Summer is often a shadow of the previous academic year, and we had a larger enrollment this year. As the president had previously said, we have 122,000 applications this year and still growing. This number in green over here, that only looks like it's about half of where it was last year. This is year end last year versus right now, year current, which means this number will continue to grow, which means there's a pretty good chance we're going to hit 123,000 there. And this is about a 30% increase in demand for an SDSU education over the last decade, which is just pretty tremendous. We have offered admission to of our 95,000 San Diego campus first-year applicants, about 34,000, 51% are students of color. Mean GPA is about the same as last year, 4.06. The gender breakdown, 60% female, 38% male, 1% another gender, and fraction of percentage points explains the difference. We do have admitted students from all 50 US states, plus DC, Guam, Puerto Rico, and from 79 different nations. This pie chart shows the distribution of these students across college. Something I will point out over here, this is, I believe, the largest class ever admitted into Cal of 5,900 students plus. So kudos to Cal this year, looking like it's going to be a very big class. For our transfers, of our 16,000 plus transfer applicants, we have accepted 8,500 roughly. 60% are students of color, about a 3.5 GPA, which is where it's been the last couple of years. 51% female, 46% male, 2% another gender. And we have a 73% acceptance rate for students from our local service area community colleges, which is our top by policy commitment to serving our local students. Here, pretty symmetrical with previous years, a little bit of a smaller class in the College of Business by about 300 students, a little bit higher in Cal, a little bit higher in PSFA relative to last year. But all told, we're looking at bringing in a class about the same size of about 4,000 students. Quick update on graduate admissions, which is still forthcoming with many offers. We have now passed our late cycle deadline. We're down about 500 or so applications overall, albeit much of that is kind of siloed into a couple of programs. Computer science applications dropped this year, as did some other departments, clinical psychology, for example. With both programs with many hundreds of applications and still able to make an ample number of offers. Even though apps are down a little bit, we're running ahead by about 150 offers of admit year to date. So good news there. And there are still 1,300 plus applications that are waiting decisions by departments. Two final slides. One, a quick plug for Explore SDSU this coming Saturday. As of a short time ago, 5,447 students had RSVP'd, including their guests over 16,000. So come prepared for lots of traffic. It looks like a beautiful day. We have students who have registered from 43 US states and from Canada, China, Curacao, France, India, Italy, Mexico, Portugal, Qatar, Thailand, and the United Kingdom. Also want to call out a great Explore SDSU Imperial Valley that happened this past Saturday for their admitted students. Last slide here, for those who have time, I encourage you to check out this great new study that was just released a couple of days ago, highered.aspeninstitute.org. This is a new publication on success in enrolling and graduating transfer students. SDSU was one of only 8 universities, four-year universities, that was called out in this study as an exemplar model. They looked at both our San Diego campus and also our Imperial Valley campus. You can see the quote right over here, really talking about the collaboration with Imperial Valley College, the local community college, and how that's been increasing bachelor's degree attainment in the region. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. And thank you for sticking around for this presentation.
I have to say, if anybody could do that, it was you. Thank you so much, VP Hyman. If you have any questions, please get back to him directly. I saw Chair Sherman had some feedback on the way that you articulated sex and gender. So if you could please address that, we'd appreciate that. Aside from that, thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? So moved. A second?
Who were those people? Sorry.
Nicole was the first, and who was the second? Brooks was the second. Okay, I'm assuming this is unanimous consent. Thank you all so very much. This was a powerful meeting. Take good care and take good care of your students, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.